Hello, and welcome to the Gen X Dad and his Gen Z Teens podcast. This is a program that takes a lighthearted look at generational differences about all sorts of topics. We try to explore everything from pop culture to history to relationships and dabble in politics a little bit, but only at a very shallow level. We don't aim to be controversial or be the authoritative voice on any topic. We're not social scientists or scientists of any sort for that matter. We're just here to talk about the things that we think are important and fun and that we'll have fun talking about. Also, it's always my opportunity to publicly and on the record prove that I'm right and my teens are wrong in all cases, and that the 80s and the 90s and Gen X is the absolute best generation out there. Hey, our topic for today is patriotism. So here we are in the week of, we had July 4th yesterday. And that is always, it's one of our major holidays here in the U.S. That we celebrate. And in general, I've lived in different parts of the world. The USA is certainly known around the world for being very visibly patriotic as a country. There's a thing that you can always pick out Americans. It's the ball caps, and then usually we wear our stars and stripes flag on all types of clothing. And so that's sort of a stereotype that fits in with it. I will say, for July 4th, the fireworks have gotten bigger and bigger and better, which I think is cool. So that is a testament to something that goes on now. But we're going to talk a little bit about, the differences, perhaps, if there are, in levels of patriotism. So this comes about a little bit because Gen Z has got a bit of a reputation through studies and things like that say they're not as patriotic as previous generations. So we'll explore a little bit with the teens on whether or not, what they think about that. One of the indications of that is that recruitment into our all-volunteer military is down. All the services are struggling right now for various reasons. Some of those reasons, first and foremost, Gen Z is a smaller generation than previous generations, so a smaller pool of people. Obviously, we don't have a clear adversary or threat like we did in the 80s with the Soviet Union. There's issues, we've talked about this on previous episodes as far as like food, but some of the fitness and obesity levels, couple that with a degree of some mental health issues and drug use. I've kept recruitment down to some degree. And then we're actually in a period, the U.S. has a good economy, and that also hurts recruitment because people have more options. Along with that, though, this has been a problem building for several years. Most of recruits that come into the military come directly from families or direct connections to people who are currently serving or have served in the past. And again, as our military has gotten smaller, that pool of people has gotten smaller too. So it is probably, when you get down to it, less than 20% of the population who are actively recruited to go into the military. So while that doesn't necessarily mean that those folks are more patriotic, it is an issue that is a trait of what can be seen as patriotism in a generation. So now, for me, growing up in the 80s, and also for everyone, this is the first time you've listening, I am a retired military individual. I went to the Air Force Academy, and I was in the Air Force for 20 years as a pilot. In the 80s, there was a lot of heavy, let's call it what it is, propaganda. And there were certainly influences to mobilize the population and sentiment to ensure that we were prepared and ready for our common adversary, which was the Soviet Union. President Reagan in the 80s went so far, he called them literally evil, an evil empire. And so again, that played a part in people, how they felt about the country. And it's always known that a common threat will tend to bring people together. Also, there was less division in politics because, again, that common threat and no internet. And so the internet of that echo chamber where you can find dissenting voices, or as I will say that, our adversaries play a part in the internet and in sending over propaganda to purposely divide us. And I think that has hurt patriotism levels overall. So that is my thesis. I think that certainly the 80s and 90s were a high time of patriotism, but I want to know what my teens think. So first off, here's my older teen, and just give me some of your thoughts on just general level of patriotism that you think is out there within your generation.
Yeah, no, I think like a lot of the kind of sentiment and studies are right. I think our generation is definitely less patriotic. And I think, like you said, the internet has played a big role in that. It makes, stuff, it makes people more extreme in their beliefs. It allows conspiracy theories and stuff to spread. And it also makes, negative things that the government does a lot more visible, such as, like police brutality, or what's going on right now with Israel and Gaza. There's images from Gaza of, all these families and kids and stuff basically, suffering, and a lot of people take that and then blame our government for supporting, Israel and stuff, and I think it definitely kind of undermines their patriotism in a way.
Yeah, very strong. What about you?
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off what he said, with the internet, it definitely amplifies a lot of not only like what we see, but also the emotions that we feel along with it, because all it takes is really one person to start an argument online, like on Twitter or something, and then now there's hundreds of people getting involved, and just emotions just keep on rising and rising.
Okay, so along with that is what you feel is a consensus within your peer group that you guys interact with. Is that true? Do you think the majority feel not so much that they're not patriotic, but their sense of patriotism might be a little lower?
Yeah, I think definitely. And I mean, like with all, generations, and anytime you're looking at a huge group of people, I mean, there's people on all sides of the spectrum, but I think kind of on average, it's not like, all of Gen Z is, out here chanting death to America, but, I think we definitely kind of see a lot of the flaws in our government, and that kind of manifests in us not, being nearly as patriotic as previous generations. And I think a big part of that is a lot of us were born and were growing up during 2008 and 2007, 2008, the financial crisis, which destroyed a lot of people's faith in both big business and the government. And we all were born post Iraq, where the government basically lied to everybody. So I think that all of that kind of fuels a level of distrust in the government, which hurts our patriotism.
Yeah, fair statements. With that, you go to a fairly large high school, and you're getting near your graduation, but you also have seen previous classes graduate, and your high school has a very large junior ROTC program, so there's kids in high school that wear uniforms and things like that. But now, it's not mandatory that those kids join the military after. But do you know kids, in high school that are pursuing a military career and entering the service?
Yeah, no, there definitely are. There's plenty of kids who really take it seriously, and I have a couple friends that are planning on going in. And then, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, especially in these ROTC programs, of kids that, that's kind of something they've always wanted to do or whatever. But like you said, a lot of those kids tend to come from, military backgrounds or something like that. So, Yeah, I mean, again, it varies person to person. You can't really take a look at a whole generation and define a single person based on their generation. But again, I think overall there is less of that than in previous generations.
Okay. And with you entering high school, was it something that kids were choosing high schools or looking forward to high schools as far as junior ROTC? Has there ever come up in any conversations?
I don't know anyone that's really like into JROTC, and it definitely never came up in like whether or not to go to this high school because of the JROTC or not. It just never came up.
Okay. Well, it'll be interesting then for you to see your peers and which ones might migrate in that direction or not. All right. Last question then. Give us just a sense of how, rough general sense of how do you feel about the country that you live in?
I feel pretty good. I mean, especially when you look at, other countries in the world, it could be a lot worse. But again, you can look at some countries and there's things they do that are better. I think there are a lot of things flawed about America, but you could say that really about any country. I think just overall as people, as a country, as just kind of a whole entity, I think we're pretty solid, especially when you look at some other parts of the world.
All right. What about you?
I don't really have anything to say off of that. It kind of said everything I wanted to say.
Fair enough. All right. Well, obviously, as far as me, I did 20 years in the military. I feel very strongly about this country. There's a degree of worry, but I think that's always part of it. But, I do have a sense of ownership of where I live, just like I think most people in the world. I want the best for this country. And if it ever needs me, I will be there. So that's how I define patriotism, is being involved, trying to make it better, and being there if it ever needs me. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. I hope everybody had a great holiday. And for our international folks, again, this was USA-centric, but I've lived in other parts of the world, and I know people love their countries there and fight for what's best of what they think is there too. So with that, thank you for listening in this week. This has been the Gen X Dad and his Gen Z teens. Thanks, and we'll catch you guys again next week. Bye.